And thank you for joining today's episode of Saved Your Seat. Before we jump in, I want to let everyone know that we will be recording today's episode. It will be up on our SoftPro blog tomorrow. So if you want to re-watch any part of this episode or send it to a colleague, you can visit blog.softprocorp.com tomorrow to get the recording. Also, feel free to drop any questions in the question box during today's webinar. We're going to do our best to get to any and all questions at the end of the webinar. So we'll save the Q&A for the end. And also, before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit of information about our SoftPro user group conference this year. So in case you're not aware, registration is open for our user group conference for 2026. It's being held April 22nd through 24th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And it's a great way to come and get some training on the software, get some one-on-one help if you want to at our support lab, and just network with other customers and SoftPro staff to get new information and any help on the software that you may need. So if you're interested in registering, we'd love to have you join us. You can get more information about the conference and register at softprocorp.com/spug. And back to today's episode. So we all know that the FinCEN residential real estate rule goes into effect on March 1st, and we want to make sure you are as prepared as possible. So today we're going to show you our SoftPro solutions that will help you collect the data you need from the buyers and the sellers to complete the RER form and make that reporting as efficient as possible for you. Also, in case you didn't see it, FinCEN actually released a new set of residential real estate reporting FAQs this past Saturday on the 14th. We will include a link to those FAQs in our blog recap as well. In case you have any specific questions about the rule or reporting, you can browse those FAQs. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Angel Lumley. She's one of our SoftPro implementation consultants. And she's also going to be joined by David Proctor, our senior technical sales manager, later on in the call. And they're going to show you all of our tools and solutions that will help you with the data collection piece prior to reporting to FinCEN.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So again, my name is Angel Lumley, and I'm just going to kind of talk through a couple of things that we're offering for everyone so that you can be prepared for these changes, and point you guys to our most famous resource. So as you guys know, in SoftPro, whenever you click F1, it's going to take you to our help area. I can't talk, sorry. And when you come onto our welcome screen, you're going to notice that we have dedicated a full section over here to the right, just dedicated to FinCEN AML rule. Now, the reason I want to bring you guys back to this, and if you've been on our webinars over the last couple of weeks, you know that we always talk about this, and it's because it is super important. One of the things on the very front, you're going to notice that we have been doing these webinars. If you haven't been able to join, there's a few left. You can see the available times that we have for automations, the bundle and my screens, and the cores. So these are all available to be registered if you guys want to try to come this week. It actually is going to be tomorrow and Wednesday. And then next, you're going to notice up here, if you can't make any of those times or you want to re-listen, we have uploaded all of the different ones that we have produced over the last couple of weeks. So you notice that we have our automation, the custom order rules, and the document bundles and my screens. We also are putting some focus on what David's going to be talking about with the different AML solutions that SoftPro has now and that are coming soon. Last but not least, this is from our amazing compliance officer, Leslie. She has got the Closing with Confidence, and it just kind of gives you that broad overview of the AML rules, just in case you want to get a little more deep into that. But the reason why I want to bring you to the F1 page is right here, this link for click here to access the necessary FinCEN downloads. If there is anybody on this call that has not had the opportunity to download everything, this is your source of truth. This is going to be everything and every possible thing that you want for FinCEN to get ready for the rule. You're going to notice that at the top, we talk about the different options for the bundle. So on our SoftPro Documents portal, you'll go into this and look for the national package called FinCEN. This package is available to you if you have your documents portal set up. You're just going to log in and then authenticate if you have the right name in there, but you would authenticate and go in and look for your FinCEN National Bundle. Over to the left, you can see where, when you get to that screen, you'll see where you can search for the different areas. And again, they fall under national, and you can download them and put them on a watch list just in case there's any changes, which we all know government changes have last minute changes. So make sure that you guys have that on a watch list. Secondarily, we've got a little bit area down here. If you guys have custom things that you need for our select customers, possible customizations to your My Screens, the order rules, any of that, you're going to notice that we have a submit link here for those of you who want to possibly get those customizations. So you can come through here, enter in your information, and then just click whichever items that you want to get contacted for, and someone will reach out to you very quickly. We've been very busy doing a lot of these, but this just kind of gets you set up and gets you in line before the March dates. Next, we have down on here our different sections. So we have our My Screens bundle for you guys to download. There is a phenomenal doc, not only for installation, but for each one of these, you're going to see a release note / README. These are very detailed to let you guys know exactly what is contained on this My Screen, but we also did it for everything as well. So for our custom order rules, you're going to notice that we have our installation guide. And then when you click on any of these different cores, you're going to notice that each one of these come with their own release notes and README. We are putting the dates beside the different files. So in case you went and downloaded this very early on, you'll see that there are updates. So if you know that you downloaded them on 1/9, then you'll want to come grab these different items just so that you can get the updated. But again, the release notes and READMEs are going to show you exactly what was changed on what day, so you can determine which version that you have. We've got a ton of cores that have been given to you guys, and they're very well explained, so you can just choose which ones you want. Last but not least is our automation processes. Same thing, you have your installation guide and then the 3 different tasks that you could potentially add to your workflow, so that when you're in those certain files and they have those qualifications, possibly because you're using the cores, that you'll get automatic tasking with automation, so that you can kind of keep up with work lists and everything else. Last but not least, I promise, you'll see that we have our Agent Tracks FinCEN user guide for those of you who are going to utilize that integration. David will be talking about that shortly. And then today we just posted the Select FinCEN FAQ, and this is a conglomeration of all of the different questions that we have been getting asked with this whole FinCEN series, and what does which parts do what, and when was the last bundle released. So you're going to see that this is a new document that has been created and loaded on F1 down here at the bottom. So a lot going on in F1. Please keep checking back just in case there are any updates. But again, whenever you download something, we are going to put the name of that or the last date of that last upload, just so that you'll know it's the latest version. All right, well, I don't want to hold up anybody. Everybody's here for David. David is here going to talk about all of our different integrations. So David, if you want to take it away.
Absolutely. Really appreciate it. I'm going to be sharing out my screen. All right. So what we're going to walk through primarily is going to be in the Select application. We're going to talk through the differences between what you would experience here, what you're going to see, versus what our standard edition of ProForm or enterprise edition of ProForm customers will see. To avoid jumping from application to application, we're going to do the demonstration within the Select application. What we're really talking about is the ability to solicit information from the buyer and the seller that is needed to report to FinCEN. There are several ways to do this, and we're going to highlight some of those tools just to sort of set the stage. What we have is we have a fillable forms feature in the ClosingsLIVE product, which is a portal-based, a branded portal-based product that many of our customers leverage. And that product has had, a fillable forms feature for some time, primarily used to securely solicit buyer, seller info sheets, commission instructions, etc. But we felt it was a natural extension of those forms to add FinCEN solicitation forms to that product. So customers that utilize Live or wish to, you're going to see a portion of that today. For those customers that write with Fidelity National Financial branded, underwriters, whether that's Chicago, Title, Commonwealth, Fidelity, etc., through the Agent Track solution, we now support, the ability to solicit information directly from the buyer and the seller through the Agent Tracks integration. We're actually holding 2 webinars this week, I believe, Wednesday and Thursday, to highlight those. You're going to get a sneak peek of those shortly. We also have added mappings to the Close Simple product. So for those of you who are familiar with that, they are a portal-based product and, customer-facing experience, but we've been working diligently with them to add the mappings for the Select application to read from and write to specific fields relating to FinCEN that we expect out shortly. There is also, when we come into a file, we also, part of the bundles, whether that's in SoftPro's Standard Edition or Enterprise Edition, and Select, as you'll see here, we do have a FinCEN Buyer collection form and a FinCEN Seller collection form. We'll just preview this so you can see it, but this is if you wanted to print the document, send it out, they can handwrite it. This is a way of soliciting the information. So you can use, any number of ways to get this information from the buyer and the seller. We're going to highlight a couple that make it easier on, the customer to fill in this through a web form. Also, if you're on the Select application, there's, a good deal of mapping on the data that comes back and forth. But this is, just, with the bundles or the, the document package for Standard and Enterprise, you do get, a data collection form for both buyer and seller that is, available once installed in both Standard Edition of ProForm, Enterprise Edition of ProForm, and the Select application. What we're going to show quickly, and we're not going to have time to cover everything that the Live product, does, same with Agent Tracks. There's going to be additional webinars. What we really want to show you is that customer experience and how it interacts. So we'll go ahead and jump in, and this one will kick out an invitation for Agent Tracks. So again, I am a Fidelity agent. This is an option that comes at no additional cost. If you have access to Agent Tracks, you're a Fidelity agent, you can utilize this solution. So we'll double click on this and it will launch the integration. And it's launched on my other monitor. I'll bring it up over here. And so once the Agent Tracks product loads, once we hit add new product, we have a new section here for FinCEN. And it will allow us, and similar to those who may have attended my webinars last week, we are in the process of working through the e-filing solution with the SoftPro's standalone 360 integration, as well as we're doing the same thing for the Tracks product, so you'll see that coming soon. But this is available today for any agent, again, that has Agent Tracks, so we can request data collection from the buyer and the seller. For purposes of this demo, I'm just going to pick a buyer form, and I can pick an individual, or attorneys, etc., for that form here. It's going to pull the information from the real estate file in focus and allow me to submit that request. It is going to generate emails to the individuals, in this case, myself, that's going to be filling this out, in order for them to complete a web form with that information. So this is the email that I just received. We'll go ahead and I'll fill in the form. I have to acknowledge here. All right, and I'm going to get a text message on my mobile device, which we're going to plug in here. And it does enforce multi-factor authentication from the real estate file. So you will need that phone number, and on the webinars, I think it, is likely just mobile, but they might be able to support landlines. We'll get some additional information on that, but I will fill in some information here just so you can get an idea, but it is tabbable. It allows the user to save their progress and return at a later time. So this is a benefit to the consumer, similar as to what you're going to see in the live product. And so, we'll go ahead and, fill in a couple bits of information. And, it's going to be dynamic. And this is going to be a common theme across this experience and what you'll see with the live product is that they are dynamic. So if I am an entity versus a trust, the fields will be different when we're asking for, trust-related questions versus like an LLC or organization. Do I have any exemptions? And if you'll see here, I need a real email address. So, it's giving me validation. We'll go ahead. They recognize that my email domain was not real. And you'll see that it's in progress with the green, any sections that have any, information that's needed. I will fill in just a couple more fields and then we'll show you 1999. Yes. And we'll put in some identification. And then we can pick, am I the beneficial owner? I'm just going to fill in some additional fields here, but you get the idea of how a consumer might, fill this information out. And the benefit to them versus, having to mail something to them is that they can fill this in, they can save their progress and return at a later time. And they don't, they can work on this, and get it to you once completed. So I'm just gonna type in just couple more things here and we'll call it a day. I forgot the section and that is my ID. All right, and now this is just the payment side of things. I'm just gonna once, say which one originating from, and I'll just key in an account number, Blackacre Trust, and I'll just say I paid it, but they're just filling out this information. They can always add multiples. This is the case in the live product as well, where they can add additional or move forward. They have to certify this and complete it. And then I can complete this. Oh, I have to acknowledge, won't let me proceed, whether funds have been transferred outside of the settlement agent reporting person. And we'll go ahead and do that. Now I've queued it up. And so if we come into this file here, you'll see we could actually just wait. I think it'll come in pretty promptly. And so we'll double click on this. And the big difference with this and some other products is that we have to check the status. That is something we're working with the Trax team. So it won't necessarily, it'll tell us via email that has been completed. And it's going to send it to the user that initiated it. But when we check the FinCEN status, it is going to reach out and fetch that. And you're going to see that pull over here. And it is going to, write all the data to the appropriate fields within the select application. So for those on our standard and enterprise edition, we don't, unfortunately don't have the fields that we can, ad hoc add to those applications. So we'll return, a document back in. But this experience will allow the fields to write, from that web form to the appropriate fields within the select application, and we'll attach a document. With that, we also are going to jump in and show the live experience. And so again, this is a portal-based product that many of our customers utilize to securely communicate and solicit information from customers. It is something that can be added to any version of SoftPro. We won't, for purposes of time today, have time to go through all of the stuff and how it's published. It can be automated and all of that. What we are going to show you is the end result. So the consumer-facing experience. And I have logged into my branded, portal. This is for demo purposes. But I have an order here that I was sent. And in here, I have an indicator that there's things that I need to do. So for purposes of this demo, I am both the buyer and the seller. But you'll see here that I have a buyer and seller complete form. These are associated with tasks within the select system or standard and enterprise order tracking. And what that allows for is we associate a task with what we call an action internally, which allows, a fillable form, or in this case, for other actions we support is send me a document like the divorce decree. But when we click on the fillable form here, these are recently updated FinCEN forms. We actually updated them yesterday. And it's going to be a very similar experience to what we saw, through the Agent Tracks product, where it is a web form where we can fill out the requisite information. And we will send that data and the documents of that PDF, of that web form back in to the corresponding SoftPro application. To reiterate, if you're on the standard edition of ProForm or enterprise edition of ProForm, we will return the documents, but we will not return the data. But you will get, evidence of that. And I'm just going to fill in a couple of these fields just so you can see it, but it is tabbable. I'll, type what I want here. And we can type in an email address. Now this is the buyer, am I an entity or trust? You're going to notice a lot of similarities between the questions that are being asked between these two, platforms. And I imagine those on the Close Simple platform, they have a different form for that. But we'll go ahead and do a trust again, just to make it, I'm going to be the beneficiary this time. Does it, have any exemptions? And you'll notice that we have some new tab structure on the top. Consideration paid, trust revocable, and we'll just say the same thing here. But it is just a way of the consumer, whether that's a buyer or a seller, filling in, the necessary information, and I'll just to United States. And we'll say beneficial owner, individual trustee. And, we could fill in this information. The big difference here between what we saw with Agent Tracks is we are going to have them e-sign that certification on this form. The same information, almost identical, because it's soliciting this information necessary for the form itself. So you're going to see a lot of the same fields across both of these experiences. I'm just going to quickly fill in no additional transferees. Then we'll go to the funds. We'll type in, hard money. And we'll say it's a wire in US currency. We'll just finish this one up so you can see it come in. with all the transferees. I'll just fill in Proctor, my name here. And we're not going to add any additional ones, but now you'll see that I have to certify in the same way. No funds will be transferred or paid outside of the control of the settlement agent or person, or I answer the latter. And we'll sign this. I'll type my name. And we'll pick today's date. So this, again, you'll also notice in this upper left-hand side, there's a save progress and exit. And so this is, similar to the Trax experience where we've added the ability for this to remember, so they can fill out portions of it, come back at a later point and continue, or they can just go like I did and just fly through it and submit it. That generates an email to the branch or office or, of our customer, letting them know that that's been completed. I have an order, and that can take a couple minutes to process. So I have an order here that we have a one queued up, and we'll show you that. It's going to be this one. So I have a ready transaction. You can automate this in the SoftPro's Select application and auto accept this. You can also automate the pushing out of that request. But similar to what we saw in the Trax product, it's going to show, the data that was sent back. For the Select application, we will write to the appropriate FinCEN fields. We will also attach the document automatically. For those on Standard Edition or Enterprise Edition, we will write to the order notes, but we will also attach the document. But once we hit accept, and we can uncheck any of these items, either by group of data elements, we can edit any of them prior to importing them in, or we can just hit accept. Again, that experience can be automated on the Select application should customers wish to do so. And it will then write to all the appropriate fields within the Select application. It will attach the document to the order attachments. And then, we can always send it out again if needed, if we needed clarification on that. But it is an experience that's hopefully a benefit add to the customer. And while we're waiting on this, you'll see the email, which will also be branded. We'll just let you know that that's been done and by whom and your file number. And it will write the 100 and something fields here, to these FinCEN fields as it does its whole thing here. And so just to recap, you can use the Agent Trax product. So if we come in here, if you are a Fidelity agent, you can use the Trax product to securely solicit that information and have that come back in. You can use the Live product, right, which we call ClosingsLIVE now, but it's under Settlement Services under, SoftPro Live, to, have a fillable form presented to the buyer and the seller and get that information back in. And in the Select application, it's going to write, to all the fields that you see here, when we, pick the transferee, and all of that information is going to pull to the, the appropriate fields as we consume that fillable form in. Again, you can just render the buyer and seller data collection forms right out of the document tree and have them handwrite them. Or if they have a PDF editor, they can type on it. But that is something, that we support. If you use Close Simple, which is another portal-based product that many customers like, and we have a very strong integration with them, as well as, partnership with them, that will also write and read from those data fields that we've added to Select. We expect that out shortly. But you can even create your own fillable PDF, or, there's a bunch of different ways to get it. What we advocate strongly, and I did on the webinars that we held last week, is get this data prior to closing, right? For all of you on the the call are familiar with trying to track down, you know, a trailing signature on a document post-closing, it's, you know, tough to get them to do that. Imagine trying to get all of this data after the fact. So that is really where, you know, we're at from a solicitation. Again, the live product is available to any version of SoftPro. You know, the functionalities like automation, things like that may vary from platform to platform. The Tracks integration through, you know, underwriter services is available today. Since we have you for a few minutes, and some of you may not, you know, have seen the solution that we've added to the settlement services here, we do have, you know, a standalone product integration that, you know, will allow those customers in standard and enterprise to input the data. It will also pull the data from the select application, which it will load here, and I'll hit refresh. So it'll pull in the information that I have in this file, and I don't know if I have any, but it will populate. You know, actually, we'll close this. We'll go into one that actually has something just so you can see it load. But this one, let's see if we have some FinCEN data in this file, and we'll launch that. But it will allow you, I'm picking like the worst possible ones. This one. It will default from the file, and we are in the process, along with the Tracks product, of finalizing the filing solution. So this is an option. We are charging $2 per real estate file in the standalone product integration here to file with FinCEN, and more information will come shortly on that, but it will populate from the select application all the information that we securely solicited through live or from Tracks, etc., you know, all to these appropriate fields. And then, you know, this view PDF will save a record of that in your file. We will retain this information for 6 months. And then you can, you know, memorialize it in the file. If it's in select, it will hopefully be in the database. And then we also, you know, we're adding another button here, which will actually physically, you know, electronically file that with FinCEN. So these work in concert, and on the Track side of things, they will have a similar feature. There will be no additional cost to use that. If you are a licensed agent with Fidelity and you have access to Agent Tracks, you can use that at no additional cost. Again, for this solution, we are charging $2 per real estate file, or pro forma order as we call it, if it's used for the filing. If you're using it in Standard Edition or Enterprise Edition, you're just using it for data entry, there's no cost unless you file that with FinCEN. So, you know, all of this, you know, there's going to be continuing information that's pushed out, you know, both on the Track side, on the on our own side. We also are in development with third parties that are relying on the reasonable reliance clause of FinCEN, which will, you know, provides that customers or, you know, agents or settlement agents, etc., can rely on a third party to solicit this information from the buyer and seller and file on their behalf. One of those companies is FinCEN Real Estate Report. And we are in development, hopefully rolling that out shortly. We're also under contract with another solution, Settlement Reporting LLC, that is in development and will come. And there's others in this space as well. And so if you're using those third parties that are going to run all this stuff down, hopefully we'll have integrations in 360 that make that, you know, easier on you. But if they're going to run down the collection, you don't necessarily need to go down the roads we just walked through by using Live or Agent Tracks or sending out that form and having them handwrite it, or coming up with your own solution, because their platforms will facilitate that, similarly to what we saw with the Live product and the Agent Tracks product. So at this point, we'll open it up, you know, to any questions that you might have. To reiterate, You can address those questions in the questions portion of the GoToWebinar. Myself, Angel Lumley, or Ellen Crema be happy to address those questions. Thank you.
David, it does look like we have a couple questions. That one was when you were showing the form, the data, the collection form, and Jessica asked, because the funds are not typically obtained by the buyer until before closing, can the buyer still submit the form to them without the payment information entered? Didn't know if we had that answer.
Yeah, super good question. It depends. I'll have to run down the validation. You know, the form itself to file with FinCEN requires that information. And so it is something that will be needed, but they can, and any custom forms, at least with the live product, you decide the validation, right? You get out of the box ones. We can run down whether they're required on those. You know, they can save their progress, and I think they could even put a placeholder in, even if not, knowing that that will likely change. But the form, you know, the residential real estate report, you know, requires that. So, you know, as for the Tracks product, I'll have to run that down. Angel, if you could just make a note of that individual, we'll respond via email. But
Yep.
Any custom forms with the live side of things, like say you didn't want that to be required and we made the decision to make it required, that can absolutely be accommodated through the live product. The Tracks product is going to be more of a one-size-fits-all, right? Where I don't think they're really supporting that level of customization by agent. With the live product, we absolutely can.
All right, we had a few other questions, David. We had one saying, do the emails confirming forms have been completed come into the SoftPro file directly, or is an email to my normal email address?
Yeah, super good question. And so we email with the Agent Tracks product will go to the user that initiated that request. So since I launched it, I will get, and I'll pull it up here, I will get a compliment, I will get an email in my regular inbox for that. Now, with the live product, depending on the version of software that they're using, we send that email notification to the branch or office level. That's typically a distribution list like closings at ABC Title or something like that. But we also can send an email to the escrow officer closer in the file. In Select, we will send that email and they'll get that in their regular inbox. If they're on Standard or Enterprise Edition, it's typically whatever we set up for that branch or office. But that is, yeah, you will get an email in your regular email. You will also, for the live product, you'll notice it will come in as a ready transaction. For Fidelity's Agent Tracks, in the initial release, you get that notification, you come in and then hit the FinCEN status button and it fetches that. We expect down the road that it'll be more traditional where once it's done, it will be pushed in versus you pulling it in. But to get it out in time for the rule to come into effect, that's the current feature, they would have to do is retrieve it. And there's going to be, again, detailed webinars tomorrow and Thursday that will also be available to view, from a recording standpoint on the Agent Track solution. So more information will follow, but yes, you will get an email to your regular inbox if you're using those products to solicit this information.
Thanks, David. This next question is specific to Agent Tracks. It was answered in the chat, but just so everyone can hear the answer. If you use Agent Tracks, will the information pull back into the FinCEN screens?
Yes, for Select, they will. If you're on Standard Edition or Enterprise Edition of ProForm, there are no screens other than the standalone product that we just showed you. So you will get it into the order notes, which then you can cut and paste into it. But in the Select application, absolutely will write to the appropriate fields.
Great. And someone else asks, is another license required? And maybe, David, you can just cover the different options if they use Live or Agent Tracks.
Yeah. So if you use Agent Tracks, there is no additional licensing needed. It is just a pro form license to get in to the order to initiate that request, either in standard edition, enterprise, or select, on-premise or hosted. No licensing there. For the Live product, which a lot of customers already utilize, if they've already purchased it, they license the Live product, and there are monthly costs associated with the use of that. If you're a standard and enterprise customer, you might have Live and then you've been using it, but you may not have been using the fillable forms feature. Because we rely on tasking to associate a fillable form with a task, it does require licensure in Classic for order tracking. And the same would be for Select if you didn't have that, but minimally you can have one license and add those tasks to it. But typically, outside of Live, where you have to license the Live product, we have to set it up. Through Tracks, no licenses are needed as long as you have access to it. You can use that. If you're using Live and you don't have order tracking or tasking, you will need that to send out a fillable form, but it could be just one license. But if you have any questions concerning the Live product, its pricing, the process to set it up, you can reach out to sales@softprocorp.com or myself directly at david.proctor, and that's PROCTOR @softprocorp.com. And myself or colleagues that report to me will be happy to, schedule a demo or address any questions that you might have on that product.
Great. The next question, the third-party integration you mentioned that is in progress, I assume the FinCEN realestatereporting.com integration. They're asking if we anticipate that being ready by March 1st.
Yeah, that's a super good question. We are doing everything we can to work with them to get it out as promptly as possible. I don't know if March 1st is necessarily a deliverable, but we're hoping for as soon as possible. And more will come on that. We will hold webinars on that solution directly, and you'll get marketing, Ellen and her marketing team will get that stuff out when we get closer. The rule itself states that you have, 30 days from the last calendar day. So you have effectively until April 30th to file, but the level of information or data that a company like that requires to start that process to get the information, et cetera, is relatively light, not to diminish, the benefit of the, coming integration, but there, in the interim, there's likely ways to get that information to start that process as we come behind it with an integration, but more will come on the deliveries for that. But I don't believe it'll be March 1st, but we're hoping very shortly thereafter.
Okay. Someone asks, if we use Closing Lock, would that information work for FinCEN?
Yeah, so Closing Lock has a very robust integration with SoftPro, both through 360. So here it is. We have not been asked to do the mappings yet. That doesn't mean that they won't ask us. So we did have conversations with them. The same with Close Simple, who move forward with that initiative. That doesn't mean Closing Lock won't. They do have a fillable forms feature from what I understand, so it's likely that they can get the information and get a document back in. But as for the mappings of all of these fields, that has yet to be requested, but they can reach out to me directly, or I can also reach out again. But it is something that they just need to tell us that that's what they want, and we would then scope that effort out and put a project on to do that. But there's nothing that would stop them from sending in a document, from what I understand of the existing integration. But there's nothing imminent on a development roadmap for that mappings to work right off the bat. But all it takes is them to request us to do that, and we would promptly calendar that initiative.
Okay. Someone else asks, can the forms auto-populate some of the fields based on the information that we have in the file, or do the clients have to fill in every field?
Yeah, good question. And so the question, just to reiterate, is, I'll show the seller form. So with the live side of things, and the question is whether you can pre-populate these screens and then let them confirm the data, et cetera. For the live product, that is not supported. And I don't believe in the Tracks product either. That's something that ideally we would get to with the live product, where we could default the information here and let them review it, change what they needed, and then submit it. We are not there yet. And so today that is not supported, but it is something that I hope in the future we can accommodate. But for this first push out, no, it will not, will not be available for it to be pre-populated.
Okay. And now someone else asks, is there a support number to direct a client to answer questions if they are working on filling out the forms in Live or Agent Tracks? And I'm not sure if, we would necessarily be the ones to field questions from the clients directly filling out those forms, or what you would recommend there.
Yeah, and so, our support number, is our main number. Will the client call that? No. I mean, if they have questions concerning the form, like what information is being provided, my expectation is that they would talk with the settlement agent, our customer, about what, if there was clarity about what these questions ask. If they have access issues, so say, they can't get in for MFA reasons or whatever reasons, right? Their point of contact likely will be, our customer. With the live product, and we'll show you this here just since I have my screen up, we do have a user management, permission that our customers use to assist their customers with access issues. And so reset password, reset MFA, disable, enable accounts, invite people to join. There's a lot in Live around that. So they would likely, if it was access issues, reach out to, the SoftPro customer. They would log in and facilitate that. Through the Tracks product, I'll have to get back to you on the process. Again, more information is going to be on webinars tomorrow and Thursday. But just looking at, the emails that are generated here, they're coming from like a title company's name here, but it's coming from, automated generated, emails from FNF. So I would, request, any assistance from, FNF. Tracks would be, likely their support. But ideally, if you're talking about questions regarding the form or why this information is needed, we would expect, I imagine, our customer would field those.
Someone asks, when will we be able to leverage Live for the data collection forms? And my understanding is that if you use Live, that's available today, right, David? And if you're interested in using Live, it's a matter of reaching out to us for more information.
Yeah, that's correct. So we just rolled out the new forms that you saw today. So we had some in pilot. We rolled out a couple weeks ago for Live, got a lot of really good feedback. And on Monday, we updated them all. And so you have the latest, greatest, but they are available today and have been for a week or two now. But that, if you have Live, you can utilize that immediately. Again, if you're interested in, understanding what the implementation process is, the costs, et cetera, you can reach out to me directly, or sales at SoftPro Corp. It'll get routed to me anyways.
Okay. And then someone asks, if you have the same LLC that buys 20 a month, is there a way to save their information for future files?
Yeah, if you're in the select application, you can build a template for like that shared LLC, that same LLC, and fill in these fields and then overlay that, that template or prior order. It will retain that. You can solicit the information on every subsequent thing. If you're using the standalone product or through Tracks, Once it's in the file, that's where we're pulling it from Select, so that can be reused. But since, tying back to the earlier question about pre-populating that information, like if I was sending this out on file 1234 to Blackacre LLC, for example, and then 1235 for Blackacre LLC, and I was soliciting this information, it would not default from file to file. But in Select, you can have that information defaulted, so you can just change those things that are needed and then file directly either through Tracks or through our standalone without having to rekey all of that information every time. But it would be set up on a template, or you could overlay that file into a subsequent file.
Okay, great. That's actually all the questions that we got so far. So thanks for running through all those solutions, David. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And just as a reminder to everybody, this specific webinar is being recorded. It will be available on our blog tomorrow. Everyone who registered for today's webinar will be sent an email once that recording is available. And then if you're looking for any other FinCEN resources, as Angel mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, on our F1 help site, if you just press the F1 key on your keyboard when you're in the software, you can view other recorded webinars, FAQs, other information about FinCEN and our solutions on that F1 help page. So thank you everybody for coming to today's webinar, and we look forward to keeping you posted on everything FinCEN related.